Now, I don't know if some of you glanced at my playtime for Mortal Kombat 1 and even Mortal Kombat 11. These two games are probably some of my most played games on Steam, and I can tell you without a doubt that I was wrong about this game at launch. At launch, I basically went head to head and said, Mortal Kombat 1 was going to basically be better than Street Fighter. As a fan, I was just talking from, the part where I liked some aspects of Mortal Kombat, the mainstream appeal for Mortal Kombat, and all of the above. But it appears that the developers have pretty much run out of how to modify and transform their business idea to make their game appealing down the road. I say all this in the face of the news that Mortal Kombat 1 is reportedly in a position where there will be no DLC coming down the road or expansion, simply because of poor reception and poor sales on that side. Before I even jump any further, here's my Steam account for MK1. 280 hours. It's basically almost the only game I play. Backlog is sitting there. And then MK11 was almost 800 hours itself. And I played MK11 on PlayStation as well, where I've racked up a lot of time. So these are my, some of my most played franchises. The Division 1 and the Division 2 are still number, 1 and 2, depending on what day in that regard. So what in the world is going on here? Apparently, this article came from Insider Gaming, and we're going to talk a little bit about it. I'm going to share my opinions as someone who's played, these two Mortal Kombat games after returning to Mortal Kombat 11 for many years. And I think I see where there are just a lot of issues. And the, games that are going to kind of give us direction as to how fighting games should be managed will be Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8. Well, I guess you say Street Fighter franchise and the Tekken franchise from 7 through 8, from 5 through 6. Future Mortal Kombat DLC canceled after poor expansion sales, it's claimed. Please, let's make sure, too, that we take this with a grain of salt, as Mike Straw is actually writing this. It appears as though future content for Mortal Kombat 1 is ending after Kombat Pack 2 wraps up, according to new claims. Developer NetherRealm Studios has canceled the DLC plans from Kombat Pack 3 and second story expansion for Mortal Kombat 1. Known Mortal Kombat 1 leaker, Fate Unknown, posted on Reddit that the cancellations happened recently after Chaos Reign expansion sold poorly. It's not all bad for Mortal Kombat 1 fans, as there's still characters from Kombat Pack 2 to join the roster, such as Conan the Barbarian and T-1000 Terminator. Fate Unknown also said that it's possible a cameo or two might make it into the game due to work that had already been done on them, but he didn't know yet. Insider Gaming has reached out to NRS for a comment. They're not saying anything. Warner Brothers showed commitment to the Mortal Kombat series, which David Zaslav said in future development efforts was going to be focused on this franchise, being listed among them. So Ed Boon has not said anything. He said in this particular article anyways that NetherRealm has been working on its next game even before MK1 was released. And believe you me, ladies and gentlemen, last time they pulled this off, they literally went straight into MK1 development. They didn't even waste any single time at all. It wasn't even one of those things where, you could even debate that they were going to take a different direction at the end of the day. So here is what I think is going on with this particular game. You see, increasing your sales is very tantamount in regard to a fighting game, because a fighting game is very niche. MK11 was very fortunate because it sold, a good amount of copies. But this was, ladies and gentlemen, in 2019. Now, on this channel, I like to go back and examine as much data that as I can possibly, muster. Now, causation and correlation are two different things. But if we actually go back, first of all, to saturation of games in the market, for somebody to think about picking up a niche game, you got to look at 2019. In 2019, only 8,000 games were launched on Steam. In 2023, that number went to 14,000. As of today, that number is at 17,259. Chaos Reign DLC came out this year, and no way people are going to be leaving a plethora of other games that appeal to them more, that are even pulling their attention to go and play Chaos Reign because you brought out a DLC. Also, MK, the biggest weakness for this game, it does not support its fighting game community like Street Fighter does. Street Fighter pretty much goes crazy. They pull sponsors from everywhere, and in their own bidding to basically go ahead and, be one of those games that meets up with what MK has done in other games, they take it to the max. They put big price pools that attract eyes, that attract sponsors, that attracts even people buying and playing their game, and keeps the game's longevity. So they don't even really have to do much. They don't have to do a story expansion. They don't have to do any of that. All that the NRS is doing, yeah, good and great. But I think for a fighting game, if they would take those resources and all the time they use in doing all that extra stuff to just focus on the game's core, community in terms of fighting games. Now, think about it. Evo has been one of those places where if you kind of think about what's been going on, the game has pretty much been one of those places where signups for Evo had been very, very little this past few years. So when you kind of think about it all, I think you can, nail it down and say, yes, if NRS would just support its titles and support its games, I strongly believe that it will be in a position where it can really, really make a big difference. But for now, it doesn't seem like they're really interested, in doing that. I think this mainstream appeal is very, very weird for them. Another thing, too, is not only is this FGC thing a big deal, but support for a fighting game is, akin to a live service game as well. Live service games require a lot of support. They are quick to jump to the next project almost every time. Can you imagine that? They said in this article that they've been working on their next game even before MK1. So they're not really making these games for longevity at the end of the day. These games are pretty much one-offs, masking as live service games at the end of the day. These are some of just the issues that you have with Mortal Kombat in terms of the way they've managed the game and even other NRS games. If I go back, I can even look at some of the trends. But again, some of the NRS games were actually quite, popular back then, in a sense. But what they've not done is they've not done a good job getting this game to pretty much be in a position where, it does have a lot of appeal in terms of eyes and, I would say, sales and all of the above. They kind of, enjoyed the sales from MK11, which I think it sold about 15 million copies. Let's go ahead and let me verify that because I remember the last time I looked at that, it was insane numbers. Yep, I was right. It sold 12 million. Well, I was wrong. It said Mortal Kombat 11 appeared to set a record for the franchise after reaching 12 million copies sold in 2021, then 15 million in 2022, having launched in 2019. So there were a lot of sales for this particular game. However, MK1 did not reach those sales numbers. It's taken it a while. I think it would have reached there if they had maybe done some things differently. And that's the next part I'm going to talk about. And the game launching, it was not necessarily in the best place. The developers literally launched an unfinished game. Basically, MK1 was a beta. They launched a beta for their community. There were modes in MK1 that we had no idea what they were until about a year later. That is not good. You do not do that to your audience and then give them crap. So already a lot of people have left the game. A lot of people don't want to play the game, don't want to buy DLC. I did not buy DLC. I bought the DLC for MK11. I remember buying that, and I remember buying 2 copies of that game. In fact, I bought 2 copies of this game, bought one on Xbox recently because it was on sale. And I remember buying that DLC and even buying, just 1 or 2 skins. But this game, I bought Noob Saibot and I didn't like him. And I was like, which is weird. I mean, I could still get used to him. But again, it's just kind of wild to see exactly how, the game just did not, serve its own community and its own audience. Now, keep in mind, too, though, when I bought the game for cheap. I bought it with the deal. I didn't pay full price for this thing because, I was kind of weary. I saw some streaks at the end of MK11 that kind of made me go, let me kind of, hold off a little bit. I mean, yeah, I got a sale based on some deals going on. But at the end of the day, I got it at launch, but I just didn't have too much confidence because, again, having played the beta and such, I wasn't really too certain, okay, how are we going to feel this? And I didn't want to spend all that money buying a premium edition of a game that, I had a little bit of drawback for. I guess it's just, a new fighting game, new systems, that kind of what was holding me back. But if you think about it, ladies and gentlemen, man, this is one of those games where I strongly believe that if you actually think about it, this game had so much potential. It could have done so well, but the developers somewhere, somehow thought that, okay, maybe they were just going to come in and just, enjoy the goodwill of their own community. And I can cite multiple issues with that because the community is kind of like old school. They've been here for a minute and they've been supporting this game. So if they're not going to, support their game and support their community, well, then let Street Fighter come in and beat them to shreds this, particular cycle, and let Tekken also do the same, because Tekken and Street Fighter 6 are going to be 5-year supported games, if not more. And I think that's pretty much another thing. But again, there's just so much more to talk about in this particular conversation. I could be here for another 20 minutes if you leave me alone. If you play MK, let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. If you don't even need to play MK, if you are a gamer, you probably know the way these things go. Talk to me in the comment section, and hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.